They refused her service. Then found out she owns the salon. The chime above the salon door gave a cheery ding as Amara stepped inside, the smell of acetone and lavender oil wrapping around her like a too familiar curtain. The place was bright, cool, and saturated with pastels, the kind of aesthetic that screamed self-care but whispered exclusion if you listened closely. Amara had just finished her morning walk, a ritual she kept to clear her head before diving into work, and on a whim, she decided to stop into one of the newer salons in town. She wore a loose black dress, a denim jacket, and sneakers dusted from the gravel path at the park. Nothing flashy. Hair in a bun. No makeup. Just her and the quiet confidence she wore like second skin. Inside, 3 white women sat behind manicure stations. One looked up, the corners of her mouth lifting, but the smile didn't reach her eyes. "Hi there," Amara said, walking toward the front desk. "Do you have time for a walk-in? Just a quick gel set." The receptionist, a girl with sharp eyeliner and sharper tone, didn't answer right away. She looked Amara up and down, her eyes scanning from worn sneakers to natural hair like they were checking a price tag that didn't quite match the product. "We're full," she said flatly, not even glancing at the appointment book. "And we don't usually take walk-ins, especially not today." Amara paused. Her heart didn't race, not yet, but her stomach twisted in that familiar, invisible way. "Really? That's funny," she said, her voice calm but edged with something cool. "I passed a woman walking out saying she didn't have an appointment and still got fit in." The girl shrugged, her smile now more of a smirk. "Maybe she was a regular." "Maybe," Amara said, letting the word hang in the air. She looked around the salon, clean lines, white walls, rose gold accents, and an espresso machine humming softly behind the counter. But what caught her attention wasn't the decor. It was the faces, the clients, every one of them white. Every nail tech, too. Amara tilted her head. "That's okay," she said slowly, pulling her phone from her pocket. "I don't need a service right now anyway." The receptionist's brow furrowed slightly, confused. "I just came to check how my business was doing." The words landed like a stone tossed into still water, small splash, big ripples. The other nail techs looked up. A silence fell. The receptionist blinked. "Excuse me." Amara's smile this time was steady, sure, and very much alive. "I own this salon," she said. The girl's face drained of color, and Amara turned slowly, letting the room feel the weight of what had just been revealed. The silence that followed Amara's words was thick, almost audible, like the static hum before a storm breaks. "You what?" The receptionist stammered, her voice faltering. "I said," Amara repeated, still calm, "I own this salon." She reached into her jacket pocket and pulled out a key ring, small, silver, with a single, distinctive gold key fob engraved with Elaine, the boutique salon brand she had built from the ground up. The receptionist stared, eyes flicking from the key to Amara's face, disbelief wrestling with dawning realization. From the back of the salon, a soft gasp slipped from one of the nail techs, a woman in a lilac smock who had just realized that the woman they had turned away was not only their customer, but their employer. Amara let the silence stretch just a moment longer before walking past the desk toward the back office. Her sneakers squeaked slightly on the tile, the only sound in a room frozen in its own discomfort. Inside the office, she placed her bag on the desk and sat, exhaling slowly. Her hands trembled, but not from nerves. This was something else. Years of being passed over, spoken down to, or erased in spaces she'd worked twice as hard to enter. This moment was for every time someone had assumed she didn't belong. Out front, the buzz of nervous chatter had returned in hushed tones. Amara took her time before stepping back into the salon. When she did, she didn't ask for anyone's attention. She didn't need to. They were already watching. "All of you," she said evenly. "Please come over here. Let's talk." And just like that, the balance of power shifted from silence to reckoning. The staff gathered slowly, awkwardly, near the waiting area. No one spoke. No one met Amara's eyes. She studied their faces, not with bitterness, but with precision. These were the people she had hired through a regional manager, trusted to uphold the brand she had built. A-Lane wasn't just a salon, it was supposed to be a sanctuary. A place where care wasn't reserved for certain faces. You didn't recognize me, Amara began, her voice steady but low. And that's fine. But what I want to understand is, why did that matter? The receptionist, the one who had turned her away, fidgeted with her name badge. I thought you were just walking in, she muttered. And walk-ins aren't welcome? They are, another tech added quickly, just usually with appointments prioritized, and Amara raised her hand, and the excuses wilted. I watched a white woman walk in without an appointment and be taken back in under 5 minutes. No one responded. Amara looked toward the woman in the lilac smock, the one who had gasped earlier. What would you have done if I had insisted? If I had pushed back on being told no? The woman flushed. I don't know, she said softly. I do, Amara said, eyes never wavering. You would have seen me as difficult, loud, aggressive. You'd have talked about it all day, maybe even laughed. Her voice didn't rise. It didn't have to. The words landed clean and heavy, each one a mirror. I built this brand to reflect beauty for all women, she continued. But it seems somewhere along the way, that vision got diluted into comfort zones that look like exclusion. The room was still. And comfort, she added, is not the same as care. The room seemed to shrink as Amara's words settled into the corners. I chose this neighborhood for a reason, she said, scanning their faces. Because I wanted Black women, Latino women, Asian women, trans women, every woman who has been made to feel too much or not enough in places like this, to walk in and feel immediately seen. She paused, letting that land. But what happened today? It's the same erasure I faced before I ever had keys to my own building. I thought I was building something better. The receptionist finally looked up. Her eyes were wide now, not defiant, not even defensive, just exposed. I didn't know who you were, she said quietly. Amara nodded. Exactly. You didn't know, so you assumed. And that's the issue. You didn't ask. You didn't check. You didn't even think I might be worth your best behavior. There was no rage in her voice. No shouting. That was the part that made it hurt more. The way she held her power with grace sharp enough to cut. I'm not interested in firing anyone today, Amara continued. I'm interested in fixing this. But let's be clear, this isn't just about customer service. This is about who you believe deserves respect before they've earned it in your eyes. Her gaze turned back to the front desk. And who you assume doesn't. That hit different. One of the techs looked down at her hands, the same ones she used to shape and polish and paint with care, hands that had just hours ago chosen silence. Amara folded her arms and leaned back slightly. I built this space for all of us. But I'm not going to let it turn into just another salon that only welcomes people who fit one version of beauty or worth. Amara gestured to the large, ornate mirror on the wall, a design choice she had insisted on during the build. Not just for checking hair or angles, but for reflection, the deeper kind. Look at that mirror, she said softly. That's where women come to see themselves. Not just their nails or their makeup, but who they are becoming. What kind of reflection do we offer them? The staff followed her gaze. In the mirror, they saw themselves standing together, quiet, uncertain, and for the first time, perhaps really seeing the space they occupied. That mirror doesn't filter, Amara added. It doesn't soften or shape. It tells the truth, just like I'm doing right now. She stepped closer to the front desk, her tone lowering, intimate now. You don't have to know my name to know my dignity. You don't have to know someone's title to treat them like they matter. You don't have to recognize their face to recognize their humanity. There it was, the core. One of the nail techs, the youngest, with short curls and nervous energy, spoke up for the first time. I'm sorry, she said, voice small. I didn't say anything earlier. I saw what was happening, and I just froze. Amara turned to her, and something softened in her eyes. Thank you, she said simply, for saying that now. She didn't expect perfection. She expected honesty, and it was beginning to surface. Accountability isn't punishment, she said. It's a mirror, and you just looked into it. They gathered in the client lounge, a space usually filled with laughter, the soft hum of dryers, and the scent of eucalyptus tea. But today, the air was heavier, more honest. Amara stood near the window, sunlight catching the gold details of her earrings. She didn't sit. Not yet. This salon has a reputation for being high-end, she began. But if we treat people like they have to look the part before they're worthy of kindness, then all we've built is a pretty cage. A few nods. A few stares at the floor. You ever wonder, she asked, how many people walked through those doors and never came back? Not because of the prices, not because of the wait time, but because of how they were made to feel. Silence answered. It's not enough to be excellent at nails, she said. We have to be excellent at welcoming people, especially those we've been conditioned to overlook. She finally sat down, crossing her legs slowly, deliberately. So here's what's going to happen, she said, her voice gaining structure. Starting tomorrow, we're shutting down for a day of anti-bias training. Real talk. Real work. Everyone. Paid. Mandatory. The staff looked up, surprised. Yes, I'm paying you to get better at this, she said with a faint smile. Because change isn't a favor, it's part of the job. The receptionist opened her mouth to speak, but stopped. Then tried again. Can I ask something? Amara nodded. What made you come in today like that? Not dressed up, I mean. Amara smiled gently. Because I shouldn't have to wear my worth. The question lingered even after Amara answered it. I shouldn't have to wear my worth. It was more than an explanation. It was a truth that unsettled the air. She stood again and walked slowly to the product shelves, fingers grazing the carefully curated rows of oils, scrubs, and creams, each bottle a small symbol of indulgence. This place, she said, turning back to them, was never meant to be exclusive in the way that word is usually used. Exclusive shouldn't mean excluding. It should mean, we protect a standard of care that includes everyone who walks in here. The receptionist, Olivia, Amara now recalled, looked down at her own hands. They were trembling just slightly. I thought I was doing my job, Olivia said. I thought I was protecting the brand. And who told you the brand needed protection from people like me? Amara asked, gently but without flinching. Olivia didn't answer. She didn't have to. That's the thing, Amara continued. Racism isn't always loud. It's not always yelling slurs or denying entry at the door. Sometimes it's a no wrapped in fake protocol. A smile that tightens instead of softens. A tone that shifts the second someone makes you uncomfortable just by existing. She let the words fall like notes in a room finally tuned to the truth. We don't need to be perfect, she said, but we have to be aware. Because unexamined bias becomes policy, and policy, in spaces like this, becomes practice, and practice becomes exclusion. That's what had happened here. A system of soft refusals, unspoken sorting, invisible lines that said, this is not your place. But Amara had drawn her own lines, and now she was redrawing theirs. That afternoon, Amara stayed behind after the team left, sitting at the front desk, the same desk where she'd been denied just hours earlier. She looked out the window as the sun began to dip, casting warm shadows across the waiting area chairs. She could still hear her mother's voice in her mind from years ago. If the door doesn't open, baby, build your own. And she had. But today reminded her that even when you build it yourself, you still have to guard the spirit you built it with. Because exclusion has a way of slipping in quietly, wearing professionalism like perfume, sweet on the surface, sour underneath. She reached into the drawer and pulled out a small box labeled welcome cards. They were designed to offer each guest a personalized touch, handwritten notes, welcoming them to the space. Something she'd envisioned as part of the salon's DNA. She realized they hadn't been used in weeks. The following morning, the salon remained closed to clients. Instead, the staff sat in a circle on the lounge floor, legs crossed, shoes off, notebooks in hand. The trainer Amara brought in was direct, warm, and unrelenting. They didn't talk about nail polish or cuticle trends. They talked about code switching, about microaggressions, about why a black woman in sneakers gets asked for credentials before a white woman in Lululemon gets offered coffee. They didn't cry, not yet. But they sat in their discomfort like grown folks do when they realize being nice was never the same as being just. Amara sat with them. Not above, not outside, but with. Because leadership wasn't about distance. It was about presence. By the end of that training day, the salon didn't feel like the same place. The walls hadn't changed, the furniture hadn't moved, but something in the air had shifted, less polished, more real. Like the quiet between beats when a song is about to change. Amara walked the team through new protocols, some practical, some deeply intentional. First, every client would now be greeted personally. No assumptions, no scanning. Just a genuine, human welcome. Second, a new hiring policy that ensured the team reflected the full spectrum of the clientele they served. Because diversity wasn't decoration, it was infrastructure. Third, everyone on staff would undergo regular equity training, not as a punishment, but as a promise, to themselves, to the community, and to the name on the glass door. As Amara spoke, her tone didn't waver. It wasn't cold, but it was clear. She wasn't just fixing a mistake. She was making a declaration. This salon will not be a space where people wonder if they belong, she said. It will be a space where they know they do. There was no applause, just nods, eyes a little glassy, shoulders a little lower. After the meeting, Olivia approached her, hesitant. I don't know if I deserve to stay, she said quietly. Amara looked at her for a long moment. Then she said, that depends. Are you ready to start over? Olivia nodded, her voice cracking. Yes, completely. Then stay, Amara said. But don't stay the same. The salon reopened 2 days later. There was no grand relaunch, no Instagram reel with trendy music. Just a quiet opening and a staff that had, in some small way, been reshaped. Not by force, but by facing something real. Amara didn't work the front desk that morning, but she stood nearby, watching. The first client to walk in was an older black woman wearing a head wrap and a long floral dress. She hesitated just inside the door, looking around as if bracing for something. Olivia greeted her, not with a script, not with a fake smile, with warmth. Good morning, she said. We're so glad you're here. The woman blinked, almost surprised. Then slowly, she smiled back. Amara watched the exchange, her chest tightening in that quiet way that happens when something finally starts to turn. As more clients arrived, some familiar, some brand new, there was a softness to the room. Laughter returned, not loud, but light. The music was low, the scent soothing. It was starting to feel like the dream again. Amara moved through the space like a conductor, offering nods, soft words, a touch on a shoulder. But she didn't need to control every moment anymore. The work had started to carry itself. The mirror on the wall now reflected something truer. A space where people weren't trying to prove they belonged, but simply being themselves. It wasn't perfect, but it was honest. A few weeks later, Amara walked into the salon on a Friday afternoon, not as the owner, not as the boss, just as a woman needing her nails done. She wore that same black dress, same sneakers, hair in the same bun. No pretense, no power suit, no markers of status. This time, no one flinched. Olivia, now steady and genuine in her role, looked up from the front desk and beamed. Hey, Amara, she said, voice light. We've got your spot ready. Amara smiled, a slow exhale leaving her chest. Thanks. She was led to her seat by the young tech with short curls, the one who had admitted freezing the day it all began. Now, her hands were confident, her words easy. I was actually hoping I'd get to do your set, she said, laying out her tools. You've got great hands. Strong, but kind. Amara chuckled. That's a new one. It's true, the text said. You taught us that. To see people, not just service them. As the polish was applied, deep plumb, clean and bold, Amara looked around. A black teenager was laughing with her mom across the room. A queer couple sat side by side, comparing colors. An older Latino woman read a book under the dryer. Each of them relaxed, present, whole, and not a single one of them knew the story that had unfolded here just weeks before. But they didn't have to, because the proof wasn't in a plaque or a press release. It was in the atmosphere. Later that night, as the last client waved goodbye and the salon lights dimmed to a gentle glow, Amara stayed behind. She walked slowly through the space, fingertips grazing the tops of chairs, the edge of the reception desk, the mirror that had once reflected a reckoning. Now, it reflected transformation. Not the kind people tweet about. The quiet kind. The lasting kind. She sat in one of the waiting chairs, facing the door she had once been denied at. For a moment, she let herself feel the full weight of that day, what it exposed, what it demanded, and what it changed. This was the thing about racism that so many didn't see. It didn't always scream. Sometimes it whispered. Sometimes it smiled. Sometimes it wore a name tag and thought it was being professional. But Amara had heard it, felt it, and instead of burning the place down, she rebuilt it from the inside out, with truth, with grace, and with expectations that didn't shrink to make others comfortable. This salon wasn't just a place to get your nails done anymore. It was a space that had learned to see, to listen, to correct, and most importantly, to welcome. Because in the end, power wasn't in proving you belonged. Power was in making sure others didn't have to. Amara stood, turned off the lights, and stepped out into the night. Her nails glowed under the street lamp. So did the future. Thank you for watching. Subscribe me and hit the notification bell to not miss new stories. Bye.